Hello everybody and welcome to VFR. Today we are taking a look at why you should fly the working title CJ4. This is a default airplane that comes with Microsoft Flight Simulator, but the working title mod really improves it if you're on PC and have the opportunity to fly it. So very cool airplane. We're going to hop in and do a quick flight from Atlanta, Georgia, where we're here on the ramp out in front of the FBO. And we're going to be flying on down to the Florida Keys in 07 Foxtrot Alpha, the Ocean Reef Club. Small private strip. I think that demonstrates some of the cool things that you can do in a private jet that would be a little strange in something like an A320. So we're going to hop into the cockpit, get fired up, and get on out of here. Alright, so welcome to the flight deck of the CJ4. We're not going to belabor the point. We're going to make sure our parking brake is on, landing gear is down, battery switch is going to go into the on position. And we are going to arm our emergency lights right down here. And we are going to turn on standby flight display and turn the avionics to dispatch. That'll just let us work with the FMC while we're sitting here on the ground. Now we're going to pause in it. And we're going to manually enter the flight plan. Not really a point, and I'm not going to bore you with it, but it's just like any other FMC. But this is something that the working title mod really improves. Okay, so our route is set up. Nothing too crazy. We're going to be taking off runway 8 left, which is the closest one just in front of us. We're going to be taking the Smoltz 2 departure, and then we're just going direct to 07 Foxtrot Alpha. And we are also able to pull the METAR off of using, that's a feature of the working title mod. If I can get back to it. We go into perf. Oh no, it's index. Data link, weather, view, Atlanta, we've got, the wind is at 100 for 6 knots. And we've got an altimeter of 3021. Now, very simple to set up, and one thing you'll notice is different from something like an A320 or a Boeing 737, is all of your switches are in front of you or below you. The only things up on the top panel are there's a call button for the rear of the aircraft, and you've got overhead lights. And that's it. So everything is really a lot more in front of you. And again, it's kind of laid out simply. This airplane is certified for single pilot operations. It's kind of a unique private jet in that regard. Not the only one, but it is. It has been designed so that one pilot can fly it. And that means that a lot of the stuff's going to be closer at your fingertips. Now we're going to say we have our Atc Clearance. And again, I'm using the checklist by JD for the CJ4. I think it's really good and it includes all the working title mod stuff. Now we're going to have to set all that stuff up. We're going to put our beacon lights on. Throttles are in idle, and now we're going to start the engine. So we're going to go with, open that up. We're going to press that to run, and we're going to start the right engine. It really isn't rocket science, and that's one of the nice things about the CJ4. It lets you get flying pretty quickly, and you're not fiddling with 1,000 switches. Yeah. And then once we get run on the other, once that run or that stop comes back, we hit it to run and hit the left button, and you're in business. So again, very simple, and it lets you, that's nice because it lets you get flying, which is really, really important and cool and fun. So this airplane, the CJ4, is a private jet, part of the Cessna Citation jet line. Not to be confused with the Citation line, it's an offshoot of that. Cessna began developing Citations in the 1970s. They're actually named after Citation, a Triple Crown winning American thoroughbred racehorse. Now, like other Cessna/Textron brands, the naming can be slightly confusing. You do have the Cessna Citation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which are different models, but they're, broadly similar. They're straight wing with 2 turbofans, engines in the back. And, from the Cessna Citation 1 to the Citation 5, it just basically grows bigger and longer. Now, Citation Jet is an offshoot of this. It comes in the late 80s, early 90s, which is built off of the fuselage of the Cessna Citation 2. But instead they add a T-tail in the back, and going down the Citation jet line, you have the CJ1, CJ2 to CJ4. We have the CJ4, and in the CJ4 we get a slightly swept wing profile. So most of the other Citations have a straight wing, at least up to this point. but we have a slightly swept model. It is the model, the Cessna Citation jet is model 525 in the Cessna catalog according to the FAA. And so we are in a model 525 Charlie. That's why when you're going on Vatsim or you're looking up your type code for the CJ4 is going to be C25C, because the model 25 Charlie. Clear as mud, I know. Your key design elements, obviously, are your rear-mounted turbofan jets. Those are Williams FJ44-4A turbofans. And you've got a stretched cabin. It doesn't look like it compared to other Citations, but this is one of the larger Citation jets. And it actually takes the wing profile from a Citation Sovereign, which is kind of more closely related to the Citation Latitude you get with the Deluxe Flight Sim. And if you want one, a new one today, 2021, it's going to be $10.75 million. But to do that, you can carry 10 passengers, 10 of your buddies, and go up to 45,000 feet. Alright, so our engines should be all set up and ready to go. I'm going to finish clicking the buttons, and we're going to taxi on out to runway 8 left and get up in the air. Now, I've taken a second to set up the autopilot the way we need to. So we'll be going into nav mode, and we'll be going up to an initial altitude of 10,000 feet, and then we'll be climbing for 40,000. Now, not rocket science here either. We're just going into advance the throttles, into the takeoff detent. And we're just following the flight director while I get distracted. Gear coming up. And we are away. Next thing, coming back off the takeoff, back out of the takeoff detent to climb. If you leave it in takeoff, it'll take off, and it'll get a little out of control on you. So we're going to climb on up to 10,000 feet. At this point, we'd be contacting departure. And eventually, they'd give us clearance to just go up to our 40,000 feet. So we'll dial that in now. And that's another fun part about flying something like a CJ4, or these private jets, is you can go as high and as fast as you dare, high and as fast as your clients demand. Generally, cost isn't going to be such an issue for them, whereas an airline is going to want you to keep you at a more efficient altitude, but maybe less fast. So we're leveled off here at 40,000 feet above the Earth's surface, flying right now over southern Georgia. And we are going to be we're doing a cool 0.7 or so Mach, 0.72, and we're going to push that a little higher. Now, is where the CRJ really starts to shine in terms of performance and in terms of fun. So this is a really cool airplane for a few reasons. Number one, we talked a little bit about, it's everything's very much in front of you. The controls are not confusing. The controls are not particularly complicated. But, especially with the working title mod, you get a good amount of depth. And it's a good, almost like a gateway experience to flying airliners or flying IFR stuff. If you sit in an A320 or anything like that and feel intimidated by all the switches and buttons, and it seems like a lot, it is a lot, then maybe try the CRJ, because that will teach you all the same navigation stuff. You're using a very similar FMS system, punching into the box, and you're filing stuff with air traffic control very similarly, especially if you want to start Vatsimming. It's definitely a very good option if you're interested in that experience and getting your feet wet, without necessarily diving straight into something like an A320, which has a bunch of buttons and switches and can be it's a bit of a process. A fun process, but a bit of a process. And personally, that's the way I learned how to fly airliners and stuff like that when I was coming back to flight sims. I got into CJ4 and flew a bunch and figured that out, and then went over to the A320 or the A32NX. I'm not saying you have to. If you want to dive in, if you have a passion for airliners, you can dive straight into that. But it is a lot of switches and buttons, and it can be quite intimidating. In the CJ4, everything's right here in front of you. Everything's pretty intuitive, and it's not complicated to start up. It's not complicated to use. Now, you don't have an auto throttle, but you do have, so you'll need to watch your throttle, but it's pretty stable. We are cruising now at 0.75 Mach, and we'll just try and ride that overspeed line a little bit. So the next thing that makes this plane pretty fun to fly is that it's just similarly, it's a modern design. It's very much user-friendly, and it's just a different experience from flying something that has a glass cockpit in the GA space, like a King Air. It's not the G3000, but it's also not necessarily quite like an Airbus or a Boeing. It's its own unique thing. I believe it's a Rockwell Collins, or whatever Rockwell Collins is now, Pro-line avionics suite, which has been recreated with some help by the working title mod. And you get a lot of depth with it. I was just playing around, and you can play, there's a button down here where you can pull up passenger briefs, and it'll play briefings for all these different events and things, which is fun. So there's a lot of stuff like that with the working title mod that you can dig into. But it is a very modern feeling cockpit. It all feels very ergonomic. Another fun thing about this airplane, which is fun for really all private jets, is that you get the chance to go where you want with little suspension of disbelief required. You will always see private jets coming in and out of big airports like BWI or JFK or Atlanta, but you'll also see them coming in and out of small regional airports, like the one we're going to. Your local regional airport might have some. Anywhere really with a paved runway it's long enough to land a private jet, you could get one in there, and that's perfectly realistic. So it's not something that maybe an A320 is set up for, but the CJ4 is. So you do get a chance to do some weird and wacky trips with an airplane like this, and a little CJ4 like this. Again, you can go long haul, you can go short haul, you have pretty good range. You can just really land anywhere with, again, little suspension of disbelief. And you can push the boundaries of your performance as much as you want. You can go 45,000 feet and Mach 0.77, it looks like we're going to get up to. There's no cost index, no fuel saving, no optimal cruise profiles for you. If you want to ride the overspeed line, if you want to really push the airplane to its max, it's a fun and different challenge from flying more regular airliners. So again, the important things to know for this airplane are it's a fairly straightforward airplane to fly. It handles pretty well. Takeoff power, it will take off, and it's very easy to overspeed it. So when you're coming off the runway, once you've taken off, go back to climb power pretty early on, because again, you'll find yourself overspeeding, and you might even overstress the airplane, blacken yourself out. Now, there's no auto throttle. You need to manually control the throttle, but it stays pretty stable. So it's just something you have to keep an eye on as you're flying along. And there's no, no overhead panel. All the controls are right in front of you. There does take a little bit of fiddling with the two panels to control your PFD. So if you hit PFD menu, it will bring it up, and I think you use this dual knob, which can be a little funky to deal with. But you use that to manipulate your menus. And your MFD here has the same panel, or a lot of the similar things down here. So you can pull up different menus here. And this is one of the things that's really filled out by the working title mod. And again, I use JD's checklist for the working title CJ4. It helps a lot. It really has everything I need to know, and it gets me up to speed quickly. And it has especially if you're working the FMS, which is a little bit different from your Boeing or your CRJ or whatever else, right? If you're going between airliners, it really helps to have that checklist. So about 200 miles from the airport, we're going to begin our descent at 170 miles. So I will catch up with you guys on the way down as we fly over Central Florida. Alright, so we're beginning our turn to final now. We're going to do a long, about 8-mile final, straight in to runway 05. It's basically going up the same direction as this archipelago, I guess. So we'll be coming in, we're at about 2,500 feet, which is about right. Now, there's a lot of big trees around this airport, so we'll have to watch out for that. But we should have plenty of runway to get down safely. It's right in the middle of all this little village here. And we are 7 miles out and at 2,200 feet. So I have one knock of flaps. We're going to reduce speed even further, down to 100. We're going to try to get below 160 knots now. The gear is coming down. And you can just about see it. The long strip off our nose. I'm going to turn off flight director. Now we'll just get a little more power to stay in the air. About 3 miles to go. We're in now full flaps, full landing configuration. We do have an AOA indicator, which should be familiar to all your carrier aviators. And we have the runway in sight. This last row of trees is not ideally placed. Do some trimming. And there you have it. Welcome to the Ocean Reef Club. Just landed. We are unloading all the boating equipment, I'm sure, for the owners. And yeah, it was a fun flight. This is a fun, tricky airstrip to land into. I don't know how realistic those trees are. They might be, but it adds a little spice. And that's kind of a good illustration of the different kinds of flying you can do in these private jets. You might be doing a visual approach into an airstrip like this with no ILS, or you might be flying in between big international airports. So that provides you a good flexibility in what you want to fly and where you want to fly, and gives you some different challenges to think of that you might not be faced with in an A320 or something like that. It's also just a very fun, fast, modern plane to fly. It has really good performance. We're getting up to Mach 0.77 or so at 40,000 feet. So you can really cruise pretty fast, pretty high, and you can put your foot down. It's a lot of fun. The other thing is it's just a very user-friendly jet as far as jets go. So if you want to practice or learn more about flying jets and using FMSs and flying IFR flight plans, especially using things like Vatsim, CJ4 might be a good platform to start cutting your teeth on if all the other stuff involved in an airliner is a little bit much and a little bit intimidating to look at. The CJ4 is really simple. You hit a few buttons, you turns on, but you still are programming and doing all the IFR navigation very similarly to any of the airliners you might fly otherwise. So it's a good entry, kind of gateway airliner in that respect too. So lots of fun, good stuff. Hope you all have enjoyed, and if you have any questions, comments, what do you like flying in the CJ4 and other airplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator, drop that in the comments section below. As always, like, comment, subscribe for more stuff like this. And yeah, that's about it. This has been VFR. Take it easy, everybody.